conflicting information, the blind leading the blind. But because I did have a strong investment background, I was able to ask the right questions. I knew where to go to look. I knew how to determine value. And my first property here, which was dirt, and I would encourage people, um, you know, just you don't have to buy a house. Like this was my first experience, by the way. I purchased it for $750
In
and
Texas.
in Texas.
Was
Yes.
it a piece of land?
Yeah, it was a piece of land on a residential lot, and I sold it for 15,000. 15,000. And that's why I say anybody could do this.
Wow.
Anybody. And I wasn't licensed in Texas.
Okay.
I was licensed in California, and Texas is a whole nother beast, even though I'm licensed here now. But at the time, I wasn't licensed here. I had to learn a lot in that process too, because people were asking me about the land and, they were asking me, was it zoned for this and zoned for that? I was like, oh my God, I never bought land. But what I learned from that experience was it's so much easier to sell than a property. Because guess what? There's no appraisal or what the worth is on dirt. Now, but there is a value based on what has been sold
Okay.
from other piece of dirt.
Okay. That's close by.
Yes, yes, yes. And 9 times out of 10, when you're selling dirt, it's got to be cash. So guess what? The transaction is going to be super easy. There's no financing. Who's ever buying it got the money. And if I bought it at 750 now, that property could have been worth 30,000. Could have, but I didn't care. I made infinity on my $750.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know? And
Wow.
so that's what really I began to say, hey, I got something here. And then I started coaching and teaching people about the tax deed part.
Right. So now, I follow your Instagram and I follow your social media page, and I see you always going on these, I call them journeys or expeditions to other markets, to other states. Talk about that. Because I see you going to other markets and you're checking, but you don't just give the good side. If something didn't pan out, you talk about the real too. So talk about, why do you visit other markets? Is it for the diversity perspective, or tell us about that.
I like adventure, number one. And then number two, I don't want to ever be complacent in regards to just being around my market. But most importantly, honestly, my students, like I feel like it's God sent. Like I feel like God just be like, this person needs to come to you and you need to go over here. And so I honestly, I think that's what drives me to other markets, because I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. I was like, let me give me a plane flight because I need to come and see this, because it's unreal. And it's like you have to go into an environment to fully understand what you're investing in. And so I go to different environments because I really want to know and have a knowledge base before I invest. And if my student is trying to buy and they really don't understand, I will, depending on, what type of student is, I'll fly there and be like, okay, hey, this is what we're going to do. Matter of fact, if it's a good deal, I'll even buy. So I go in there because I realize that every county isn't the same, every market's not the same, and it just adds to my knowledge base, because I really believe that knowledge is power, and no matter what happens in our economy, as long as you have knowledge on a certain niche, you can always make money.
Absolutely. Where do you see this industry going? I mean, I know you've been in it for some time, but where do you see it going?
Well, I see it like my niche.
Mm-hmm.
It's starting to grow more and more and more. And the reason I say that is because every year I have about 4 or 5 large companies, like investor companies, try to target me because they have no clue like what I do. So like a lot of companies are big on tax liens, and I do
I hear
tax.
about the tax lien a lot.
Yes, yes, but not a lot of people do tax deeds and overages. Um, Primarily the overage part of this business, a lot of people don't fully understand it to sell it. And so I feel like it's almost 5 years. I said, and so probably next year, I feel like it will be like a household name. I still see like a few people dibble and dabble and talk about it a little bit, but it's definitely not mainstream yet. Definitely not. If it was, you know, it would be all over the internet, and it's not. I see about 2 or 3 people post ads, but it's not as big as tax liens.
Mhm. And again, I think you said something earlier, when you're getting these properties, it's mortgage free, the mortgage is paid off?
Yes, because it's a federal lien, so it's first position over the mortgage.
Mhm.
Like if the mortgage company doesn't pay it, then they default, and the mortgage defaults back to the lender, and you as a new investor gets the property free and clear just for the taxes.
And so basically you just have to pay the taxes, correct?
Correct. Correct. It's funny because every time I go to an auction and you see like massive amount of people on the other side doing the foreclosures, and then you'll see, some looky-loos, and you'll see a little group of us doing tax deeds. And
Mhm.
even at the tax deed auctions, it's probably like 2 or 3 of us investing, and everybody else is just looking around. I still feel like this industry, as it grows or people get more comfortable or more knowledge, it will expand, but I don't think people fully understand it. I think a lot of people get confused with tax liens. And so, if you don't understand anything, you're really not gonna, try to do it because you're afraid you're gonna lose your money.
Yeah.
So I think maybe in the next year or so, I think it's gonna definitely, expand. I don't see this business going anywhere, because it's a way for you to acquire property with no mortgages. You just have to have cash. And then on the flip side of that, I teach overages, which you don't have to have cash or credit. You just have to invest your time and your knowledge, and you can get lump sums of cash without investing a dime. And then you could take that money, invest it in tax deeds. But it revolves around tax deed auctions.
Okay.
That is one of the mainstream things that I feel like, um, it's taken a while, but I think people are catching on, but not to the point where a lot of people, there's still no competition, basically.
But what I just heard you say, let's say somebody wanted to get into overages
Mhm.
and you said they didn't have to have capital,
No capital.
but they just had to have what? They had to put the sweat equity, the time. So can you give an example?
Mhm. So basically, like I talked about the auction, like let's just say you and I go to the auction, right? I lost my property, but I want you to go buy it, right? So I
Mhm.
just basically, like, Catherine, I lost this for $10,000. It's going to the auction. You think you could buy it back for me? And you were like, I'll try. But then you decide that you're just gonna buy it and keep it. I owe 10,000, and then you end up buying the property, let's just say for $50,000,
Mhm.
right? Well, the 50 minus the 10 is $40,000.
Mhm.
That overage comes back to me. You can
Mm.
keep the property, but that overage comes back to me. What I'm finding is that a lot of people don't know they're owed that money. And so
Okay.
that's where a person like, any investor that doesn't have cash, credit, but they want to get into the real estate game, that's where you could come in and contact the claimant and be like, you don't want to really tell them the whole amount, but you don't want to tell them where it's at, but you'd be like, hey, there's some money left out there for you. And, of course, people, as times get hard and people lose their jobs, who's not willing to take money, right?
Right.
And I don't want to say free money because they lost their house, right?
Mhm.
But you can contact that claimant and tell them, hey, I believe there's money owed to you, and I'd like to set a contract with you to go after this money. If you agree, I won't charge anything up front because it doesn't cost you anything to do it.
Mhm. Right.
Um, and then you say, I just take a percentage if I'm able to file the claim for you. And so you could charge like 20, 30% on 40,000, and you could rinse and repeat that.
That's powerful. So for anybody watching now, watching later, is going to be listening to this podcast. If you want to get into real estate investing, Miss Coleman is sharing, even if you don't have capital to your name or extra cushion, should I say, to get into the real estate market or the investing side, she's sharing about overages and how you can go and start in that avenue to get started into the real estate investing with no capital up front. And then she was sharing with us about tax deed, that when you do start having some extra cushion of cash flow, and how you can venture into that. Miss Coleman shared, for those that may not have heard, in the Texas market, when she transitioned there, she took $750, bought a piece of land, and sold it for $15,000. Bought it for $750 and sold it for $15,000. So that is more than a return on a dollar.
Right.
You know, so tell us about your program. You coach people how to get into this market. Tell us about your platform.
And so basically it's a educational online course. You could have two options. You could just do it yourself. And basically it's, videos teaching you the process step by step, or you could hire me as a coach and then we work backwards. I get a little bit more in detail in regards to what your goals are, and how we execute those goals based on what you want to do. Because everybody's, exit strategy is going to be different. Everybody's goal is going to be different. And so with the personal coaching in the classes, we're kind of like, creating a plan and then going in markets that I feel that would probably best suit you based on your exit strategy.
Absolutely. And so how long is the program? I'm sure it's different for each one, or?
No, so it's a 90-day program. The people that have been with my coaching program, I haven't had anybody not buy a property within the 90 days that actually took the appointments. Like there's people, of course, that buy and then, they never book. But the people that buy the second or third appointment, they've already brought a property.
Wow. So within that 90 days, the individual that's in your program bought a property, have been able to make a return on their investment. And so this is where it's at, y'all. For those that want to get into real estate investing this year, Ms. Coleman shared two avenues. You could either do the tax deed, and this is her specific niche, tax deed or overages. Again, so you may be saying, well, I don't have extra cash sitting around. Start with the overages, start making some money from that. As Ms. Coleman stated, you don't have to have any capital for that. You just have to put the time in, right? And then when you get that extra cash flow into the tax deed. I know I'm learning a lot tonight. Hopefully those that's watching now, those that's going to watch the repeat. And yes, Miss Violicia says she's going to share this. Please share this. And we also have Mr. Christopher watching and tuning in. You may know other people that want to get into real estate investing, but don't know how, or don't have realistic, practical steps on how to get into it. And this is what Ms. Coleman is sharing with us on tonight. So Ms. Coleman, let's talk about just business in general, right? So you've been in business for yourself for a long time. What golden nuggets can you share with us? Like 3 tips on how to continue to move forward. Sometimes business it's not always rosy. What's allowed you to keep moving forward?
Number one, you got to have a passion. Like literally I was up till 4 o'clock last night because I have to make myself go to sleep in this business because I just get so excited. It's like when you've hit the valleys and the lows and you've been to the mountaintop and down and you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then you come across something that's just like a walk in the park, you just want to stay in it. So number one, and trust me, you guys, I'm a like bona fide, they call me a hustler, but I feel like I'm a bona fide entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely.
Because I could never it's hard for me to like be on a job. Matter of fact, I feel like a job, job, is just over broke. And
Yeah.
so I just realized I've tried other things, by the way. Like, I always had my real estate license. I've always made transactions, but it's not always easy. And so I've tried other things, but I finally found my niche. And my niche, what I think, and this is only my opinion, because for some, it depends on your tolerance in regards to like risk, researching. But in my opinion, this is the most less stress of investing that I have. Like I have properties, but I don't care. I don't have to do anything with them because guess what? I don't have any mortgages on them. Whereas what was that? 2008, 2009, that's over 10 years ago. Dang, 20 years ago, I was stressed the hell out because I had about 5 or 6 mortgages that I had to pay every month, even though I had renters in there. If a renter was late or if a renter left, I had to cover that. And that was stressful because it was just me. But now, I'm living fancy. I got properties and I don't have no mortgages on them, and I don't have to rent them if I don't want to because I don't have to worry about no
mortgage free. So, and that's another thing for those that might have just been chiming in. When she's talking about the tax deed property, when you acquire those properties, it's mortgage free. You're paying the tax deed on it, but you're acquiring that property and it's no mortgage on it. So you have, what I'm hearing from you also, that you have been on the real estate investing side where you fixed it up and you had